Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Jan's Report. Today I'll be talking about the need for the federal government of Canada to enact legislation that protects Canada's infrastructure from protesters who could also be state-sponsored. Recently, graves of dead Indigenous people have been discovered across Canada, from Saskatchewan to British Columbia. This has sparked outrage amongst the Indigenous community, who have asked that the celebration of Canada Day be cancelled and claimed it was a colonial holiday. Aaron O'Toole, the leader of the Conservative Party, has suggested, I think correctly, that yes, bad things have occurred in Canada, but we should also remember the good things that some of the controversial people, like John A. Macdonald, have done. There's also been a call from Indigenous leaders to hold mass protests once again, and I fear from the federal government's inaction to impose laws protecting infrastructure that we will once again have protesters creating and causing harm to the economy. As some of you might know, back in 2020, a massive protest broke out over Indigenous land claims in BC around the location of a pipeline that led to mass protests across Canada. This protest had a negative impact on the Canadian economy in that it put ordinary people out of work and blocked the movements of goods across the nation. The government of Alberta took action on the issue and passed Bill 1, or the Critical Infrastructure Act, in order to legally define what is critical infrastructure and creates offenses for damaging or destroying it. The other thing it does is it prevents protesters from obstructing the use and operation of critical infrastructure. Some protesters argue that this is a breach of their rights and that the Alberta government was not clear on what is critical infrastructure. I'll leave a link to the Alberta government website, which clearly defines what critical infrastructure is part of the bill. I agree that people should be allowed to protest, but should do so peacefully, without affecting the security of the nation, which brings me into my next part. Another argument to be made for the federal government to implement something similar to Bill 1 is for sake of national security. Globally, the world is dominated by the superpowers, the United States, Russia, and China, who all want control over the say in international affairs. Canada, being a middle power and ally of the United States, which also has economic interests in, is a prime target for nations fighting on the international stage. A recent example of China trying to get leverage was hiring people to protest the case of Meng Wanzhou, who was CEO of Huawei, to stop her release to the United States. What I am concerned about is that by not introducing this kind of legislation, that other nations who'd want to wreck Canada's important infrastructure would have the ability to do so. My final argument is that, like I mentioned before in my blog, that this could drive companies to consider doing business elsewhere in the world. No matter your opinion on whether this legislation is discrimination of protesters' rights, something needs to be done to protect Canada's infrastructure from mass protests. Now, to get you thinking of something else instead of people protesting and causing damage to critical infrastructure, here is today's funny picture. A Lego man who we will call Stormtrooper 1 an extra from the Star Wars movies, walking out in the desert by himself. If you like this video and want to be notified early when a new video goes live, hit the subscribe button and take a look at our Facebook page, which contains the website link to the Jan's Report blog. I will see you on the next Jan's Report.